The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home from the office, the wipers of my Ford struggling to keep up. I am Tiernan, 44 years old, and I work as a software architect in Seattle. It's a demanding job, but I enjoy the challenge. Or at least I used to. My mind was a million miles away, replaying the conversation it had with my wife, Isolde, that morning. "Tiernan, we need to talk," Shed said, her voice unusually serious. We were in the kitchen, the smell of brewing coffee filling the air. Isolde, a talented landscape designer, was usually vibrant and full of life, but this morning she seemed distant, almost afraid. "What is it, love?" Id asked, reaching for her hand. She pulled away, her eyes darting around the room as if she were searching for an escape route. It's about us," she stammered. I don't think I can do this anymore." Those words hit me like a physical blow. "Do what? What are you talking about?" It asked, my voice rising in panic. "This marriage," Shed said, finally meeting my gaze. "I'm not happy, Tiernan. I haven't been for a long time." I was stunned. We'd been married for 15 years, and while we'd had our ups and downs, I always thought we were solid. We had built a life together, a comfortable home, a network of friends. We were supposed to be happy. "I don't understand," Id said, my voice barely a whisper. "What's changed?" "I've changed," Shed replied, her voice cold and detached. "I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I need something more, something different." It pleaded with her, begged her to tell me what was wrong, what I could do to fix it. But she remained evasive, offering only vague platitudes about needing space and finding herself. I left for work that morning with a knot of dread in my stomach, a feeling that something terrible was about to happen. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car parked in front of our house that I didn't recognize. A sleek silver BMW. My heart skipped a beat. Isolde didn't know anyone who drove a BMW. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, staring at the car, my mind racing. Could it be? Was she? No, I told myself. Isolde would never do that. We had a good marriage, a loving relationship. She wouldn't betray me like that, but the seed of doubt had been planted and it was growing rapidly. I got out of the car and walked slowly towards the house, my senses on high alert. As I reached the front door, I could hear voices inside. Isolde's voice and a man's voice. I strained to listen, trying to make out what they were saying. "I can't keep doing this, Jayson," Isolde was saying, her voice tight with emotion. "It's not fair to Tiernan. He doesn't deserve this. He doesn't have to know," the man Jayson replied, his voice smooth and persuasive. "We can be careful. We can make this work, but it's wrong," Isolde protested. "I am married, Jayson. I can't just." Her words were cut off by the sound of a kiss, a long, lingering kiss that sent a jolt of pain through my entire body. I stood there for a moment, frozen in place, the blood draining from my face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Isolde, my wife, the woman I loved, was having an affair with a man named Jayson, a man who drove a silver BMW. The rage that surged through me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was a primal, animalistic fury, a desire to lash out, to destroy everything in my path. But beneath the anger there was a deep, aching sadness, a profound sense of loss. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my life with, was a lie. Our marriage, our love, it was all a sham. I didn't know what to do. I could burst through the door and confront them, expose their betrayal, demand answers. But I wasn't ready. I needed time to think, to process what I had just heard. I turned and walked back to my car, my legs feeling like lead. I got in and started the engine, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I drove aimlessly for hours, the rain blurring my vision, the pain in my heart growing with each passing mile. I ended up at a bar on the outskirts of the city, a dimly lit, smoky dive where no one knew me. I ordered a whiskey neat and downed it in one gulp. Then I ordered another, and another. I sat there for hours, lost in my thoughts, drowning my sorrows in alcohol. As the night wore on, my anger began to subside, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I wasn't going to let Isolde and Jayson get away with this. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life without a fight. I was going to make them pay. I was going to get my revenge. I started by hiring a private investigator, a woman named Mallory. She was tough, resourceful, and discreet. I told her everything about Isolde's affair, about Jayson, about my suspicions that there was more to the story than met the eye. Mallory got to work immediately. She tailed Isolde and Jayson, documenting their every move, gathering evidence of their affair. She also dug into Jayson's background, uncovering a web of lies and deceit that stretched back for years. It turned out that Jayson was a con artist, a master manipulator who preyed on vulnerable women. He had a string of failed businesses, a trail of unpaid debts, and a history of domestic abuse. He was exactly the kind of man I would have expected Isolde to despise. But somehow he had bewitched her, convinced her that he was the answer to her unhappiness. He had promised her a life of excitement and adventure, a life far removed from the mundane routine of our marriage. As Mallory's investigation progressed, I began to see Isolde in a new light. I realized that she wasn't the strong, independent woman I thought she was. She was weak, insecure, and easily manipulated. She had fallen for Jayson's lies because she wanted to believe them. She had chosen to betray me because it was easier than facing her own problems. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but it was quickly overshadowed by my anger and resentment. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Mallory eventually uncovered the smoking gun I needed. She discovered that Jayson had been embezzling money from his company, using Isolde's name to launder the funds. It was a risky scheme, one that could land them both in prison. I knew what I had to do. I went to the police and presented them with the evidence Mallory had gathered. They launched an investigation, and within days, Jayson was arrested and charged with fraud and embezzlement. Isolde was also implicated in the scheme, and she faced charges of money laundering. When Isolde found out what I had done, she was furious. She called me, screaming and cursing, accusing me of ruining her life. I listened to her rant, my heart filled with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. "You did this to yourself, Isolde," I said when she finally paused for breath. "You made your choices and now you have to face the consequences." I hung up the phone and turned it off. I didn't want to hear from her again. I had said what I needed to say. I had gotten my revenge. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Jayson was eventually convicted and sentenced to several years in prison. Isolde managed to avoid jail time, but she was fined heavily and her reputation was ruined. Our divorce was finalized shortly thereafter. I didn't ask for much. I just wanted to be free of her, to put this whole nightmare behind me. In the aftermath of the divorce, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, certainly, but also sadness, regret, and a lingering sense of betrayal. I had gotten my revenge, but it hadn't brought me the satisfaction I had expected. It had just left me feeling empty and alone. I decided to make a fresh start. I sold our house in Seattle and moved to a small town in Oregon, a place where no one knew me or my story. I bought a small cabin in the woods and spent my days hiking, fishing, and reading. I tried to find peace in nature, to heal the wounds that Isolde and Jayson had inflicted. It wasn't easy. The memories of their betrayal haunted me for a long time. But slowly, gradually, I began to heal. I started to reconnect with old friends, to pursue new hobbies, to rediscover the joy in life. One day, while volunteering at a local animal shelter, I met a woman named Gwyneth. She was kind, compassionate, and funny. We bonded over our shared love of animals, and soon we were spending more and more time together. Gwyneth had been through a lot in her life. She had lost her husband to cancer several years earlier, and she was still struggling to cope with the grief. But she was strong and resilient, and she had a way of making me feel like everything was going to be okay. As we grew closer, I found myself falling in love with her. It was a slow, gentle love, a love built on trust and understanding. It was nothing like the passionate, all-consuming love I had felt for Isolde, but it was real and it was good. I was hesitant to open my heart again, afraid of being hurt, but Gwyneth was patient and understanding. She showed me that it was possible to love again, to trust again, to find happiness again. One evening, as we were sitting by the fire in my cabin, Gwyneth turned to me and said, "Tiernan, I know what happened to you in Seattle. I know about Isolde and Jayson. And I want you to know that it doesn't scare me. It doesn't change the way I feel about you." I was stunned. I hadn't told Gwyneth the full story of my past. I had been afraid to burden her with my pain, but she knew somehow. And she didn't care. "I love you, Tiernan," she said, taking my hand. "And I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears welled up in my eyes. I had never expected to hear those words again. I had thought that my chance at happiness had been taken away from me forever. "I love you too, Gwyneth," I said, my voice choked with emotion. More than you know, we embraced, and in that moment I knew that I had finally found peace. Isolde and Jayson had tried to destroy my life, but they had failed. I had survived their betrayal, and I had found love again. I was finally free. I often think about Isolde and Jayson, wondering what became of them. I heard through the grapevine that Isolde eventually moved to another state and started a new life. I hope she found happiness, although I doubt she ever truly understood the pain she caused me. Jayson is still in prison, serving out his sentence. I don't feel any anger towards him anymore. I just feel sorry for him. He was a broken man and he tried to break me too, but he failed. I learned a lot from my experience with Isolde and Jayson. I learned that people are capable of great cruelty, but also of great kindness. I learned that betrayal is a wound that can heal, but it leaves a scar. And I learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a new beginning. Now, as I sit here with Gwyneth by my side, watching the sunset over the Oregon mountains, I am filled with gratitude. I am grateful for the love I have found, for the peace I have earned, and for the strength to move on from the past. My life hasn't been easy, but it has been worth living, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.